Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to the Brown CollegeSide Chat panel discussion. First and foremost, we hope that you're all healthy and well. This horrible pandemic is affecting communities across the world, and we empathize with you all as you navigate this already anxious transition to college.
We hope this fireside chat will provide you a glimpse into life at Brown and an opportunity to hear about our amazing panelists' stories and experiences. This discussion is going to be about an hour long, with the first portion being our panel answering previously submitted questions that we've compiled, and the last 15 minutes will be an open Q&A with you all.
We encourage you all to turn on your cameras so our panelists can see who they're talking to, but only do so if you consent to being recorded, because we'll be uploading the recordings to YouTube for other students to watch and for you all to refer back to. We're going to kick things off with introductions, so let's have each of our panelists introduce themselves with their names, hometowns, years, majors, and the first thing that they're going to do once quarantine is over.
Hi everyone, my name is Talia. I'm from Lincoln, Massachusetts, which is a small town outside of Boston. I'm a senior. I study nutrition, psychology, and human development, which is an independent concentration that I created. And the first thing that I do when I get out of quarantine is hug my friends.
Hey everyone, my name is Stanley. I'm a junior. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm studying computer science and music. The first thing that I'm going to do when I get out of quarantine is probably get boba or sushi or Korean barbecue, or all of them.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Carroll. I'm a junior studying international politics. I'm from outside of Washington, D.C. First thing I'm probably going to do, I don't know, get some pizza. There's a really good pizza chain that I like in this area.
Amelia, if you want to go next.
Oh, sorry, I did not have the order in front of me. I am Amelia, and I am from Brooklyn, New York. I am a junior concentrating in religious studies. And the first thing I'll do after quarantine is likely go see my grandparents, because this just is kind of a reminder that you should do that while you are able to.
Hey everyone, I'm Meghna. I'm also a junior. I study public health at Brown, and I'm from the Ann Arbor, Michigan area. And the first thing I'm going to do after quarantine is I've been making a list of all the restaurants that I missed, so probably going to do a little restaurant crawl after this is all over.
Okay, hi y'all. My name is Grace. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm a third year studying visual arts and engineering. The first thing that I will do when I'm out of quarantine, I think Talia took mine. I was going to say hug my friends, but probably because I'm from Houston, I'm probably going to explore the museums now that I'm back. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm from just outside Seattle, Washington. So I'm in my third year. I'm actually part of the dual degree program between Brown and RISD. So I'm studying mechanical engineering at Brown and then industrial design at RISD. And the first thing that I'm going to do once we get off quarantine is definitely see my friends. I've only seen my parents' faces for the last week or so, or the last month or so, sorry. So I'm definitely ready to see my friends again.
Hi, I'm May. I'm a junior at Brown studying public health. I am really excited to get boba after quarantine ends, but luckily I'm at home with my family, so it hasn't been too bad. I've dabbled in quite a few things during my time at Brown, so I'm really excited to be moderating this panel with Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm from Las Vegas. I'm also a junior studying health, and probably the first thing I'm gonna do is get hot pot. And then I also forgot to mention, but we're also just gonna go through our pronouns real quickly. So my pronouns are
My pronouns are she, her, hers.
I use she, her, hers.
I'm he, him, his, sorry.
I also use he, him, his.
I also use he and his.
She, her, hers.
She, her, hers.
I use she or they.
All right, thank you so much. So now that you've gotten a glimpse of who our panelists are, we'll begin most commonly asked questions that have been submitted through the Google form. So the first question is, how have you changed in college and how is Brown in that change?
So I guess I'll get started with that. So I think that Brown has made me change in a lot of ways, more, especially more than purely academic, because I feel like in high school I had this mindset where I had to push and push and keep going. And I feel like in college I've learned to kind of draw boundaries and realize what enough is enough and how to prioritize my mental health, which has been super important. Um, and particularly during my sophomore year, I was having a really tough mental health semester. And I was taking this class that I really, really hated, and it started to kind of wear on my emotional energy and my physical energy as well. So kind of realizing that taking a step back was not a failure, which I feel like a lot of times we're conditioned to think that throughout our academic experiences. So that was definitely super important for me to realize. And I think Brown has definitely had a huge impact on that change because I've been really lucky to find communities of friends and mentors and people who really care about me beyond my academic progress. So it's been really, really lovely to find a community that cares about who I am beyond like my academic side of things and value me as a person, my mental health and physical health and all of that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think like the biggest change is that I've kind of really become much more of a spiritual person and I guess like much more aware of myself. And I think that that's kind of like a thing that I have overlooked my entire life. And I think a big part of that is because in high school you're always in this like rat race to like really like work your hardest or like be in school or do something related to your academic side for every minute of your life almost. Um, and kind of getting to Brown and having like a chance to like take a breath and like think about like who I am, like who I want to be, and like the like different pieces of me has been really rewarding. And I think like Brown has really helped me in that because it's really I think a big thing is the culture at Brown, at least the culture that I'm involved in, it really does try to advocate for like taking that breath and taking a step back and like giving yourself a chance to like breathe. And I think like not having had that space, it like not having that space would have limited me in changing that way.
Yeah, I would say the ways that I've changed since coming to Brown are really similar to what have already been mentioned. I'll say sort of different from that. Like in terms of just like my own personal growth, my high school was a pretty I guess sort of like suffocating space. Like, you know, people were really competitive, people were really into each other's business. You know, a lot of high schools are like that. Versus now at Brown, like people want to see you succeed. We don't have that same culture. And so for me, I've been really able to be independent and grow confidence to not feel like I'm going to be judged or be, you know, made fun of for whatever, or you know, really just be able to be myself and an adult without having to care about this or that or whatever person says.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answers. The next question that we have is, could you describe Brown's student culture and academic climate?
So I think I'm first on that one, sorry. So I would say Brown's culture is kind of similar to like the stereotypes of like Brown students, in my opinion. Like it's a very laid back space. It's a very friendly space in ways that folks don't really necessarily get at other schools. Here at Brown, people really, for the most part, focus on trying to help each other when it comes to academics and, you know, professional life, etc. And from talking to friends who've gone to other schools, especially other Ivies, they don't necessarily have that experience of feeling supported by their peers. And I think just sort of in general, like we have a more wholesome vibe of like what it is we sort of value what it is that we sort of put forward in the way that we see ourselves?
Yeah, so from my experience, it really is a culture of mutual support and collaboration. I also think that everyone has something they're truly passionate about, and so it's really a great time to be able to engage in your own passions while also hearing what everyone else is doing. I think that that allows for a lot of creativity and a lot of bonding between students, and this academically rigorous culture kind of gets to become a healthier environment because we are kind of working on what we want to work on and supporting each other through the process. Yeah.
Before I say anything, just congratulations, huge congratulations to everyone in this panel who has gotten into Brown, because the gravity of it really didn't hit me till sophomore year, but you've accomplished a momentous thing. And whether you go here or not, you should be so happy. So Brown students are one of the most self-selecting groups in the Ivies. This includes you now. And it shows socially and in the way we manage our academics. Socially, because pretty much everyone wants to be here who comes here. So we're all functioning at a high enough level that most of the clubs and activities you'd ever want to join are open to everyone. And I think that sets a powerful precedent in the way we treat each other socially. And there's a culture of going your own way at Brown that manifests as a really unique camaraderie, both outside and inside the classroom, because everyone is on their own individual path. There are no class rankings. So there's not a lot of this cutthroat competition that you might see at other elite universities. Like, I've never met a Brown professor who could not find time to meet with me. And I've never found myself in a situation where the goal was to outdo my classmates the way competition really functions in a lot of high schools. And that makes it so much easier to focus on really learning and applying the material rather than trying to just get the A and move on to the next thing and be the best. Instead of being the best, it's about doing your best. So it's a pretty difficult academic scene to navigate if you're someone who enjoys a lot of structure. But if you like the freedom to chart your own course, then welcome home.
All right. So, speaking of the academic culture, our next question is, what do you recommend for choosing courses for the first semester? Focusing on the breadth of requirements or going right into important classes for your selected major?
So I personally love this question because my first year I took 8 classes in 8 different departments, and then I continued to do the same thing into my sophomore year, which eventually evolved into my independent concentration. One of the most beautiful and lucky things about Brown is that there are not a breadth of requirements, because we do not have requirements other than at one point during your first 2 years and at one point during your second 2 years, you have to take some course that is writing designated. Other than that, once you choose a concentration, you have requirements within that, but before that, you're free. So as a Meiklejohn peer advisor, which if you come to Brown, and please do, it was the best decision I ever made, you will be assigned as a first year a Meiklejohn peer advisor who works with you during that year and is available to you all 4 years and however long afterwards, to help you navigate every different part of Brown. So for me, I really didn't know what I wanted to study when I came in. I'm the youngest of 4 children by a lot. All of my siblings were already out in the working world by the time I came to Brown, and I've always had a lot of passions. Like Grace mentioned, there's people at Brown have millions of things that motivate them, and it's a really wonderful space in that it's not competitive saying I'm passionate about this, I'm going to win at that. It's more look at these admirable people that I'm next to every day in my classes that come from different backgrounds, have different passions, and are charting their own paths. So I always say that first years absolutely take whatever looks interesting. A title of a course, take it. Check the critical review, which is a student compiled review of each course. Take what seems cool, try it out, explore. I never would have thought that I'd have an independent concentration coming into a school like Brown especially, but being able to just take what seemed interesting, talk to different professors, talk to different students, that was the most beneficial part of my first year and ended up making my Brown experience as wonderful as it was.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Talia just said. And I think that we always talk about the open curriculum, and I know I wrote about it in my applications coming into Brown, but then I don't think I ever really understood the gravity of what the open curriculum meant until I came here. And then talking to friends at other schools and realizing they have distribution requirements, they have like a lot less flexibility. I can't imagine having that now that I'm a junior at Brown and really being able to explore, like Talia said. I took so many different classes freshman year, and at one point I was in between like 5 different concentrations. But I think that that's a really special experience because you get to kind of try things that you normally wouldn't have tried, and also kind of really understand what you're truly passionate about. So I'm also a Meikle-John peer advisor, and I also always recommend that folks take a breath of courses during their freshman year because you never know what you could find. And I feel like locking yourself into a concentration from the beginning, it can be like a good idea for some folks, especially if you're engineering and you have a lot of requirements to do. But I think at the same time, sometimes you might set yourself up for disappointment if that's the only thing you've ever tried and it's not what you expected it to be. So I think it's always a great idea to try new things, explore as much as you can while you have the freedom to do so freshman year. So definitely agree with everything that was just said on that.
My answer to this has changed so much from when I came in as a first year. Now I would definitely say take advantage of the open curriculum and use the first semester to take courses outside of your intended concentration, because I did the opposite and I really ended up regretting it. You don't have to declare your concentration until the end of sophomore year here, and even then you can still change it unless you have one with many concentrations, but they make it pretty easy. So the first year is a great time to explore everything Brown has to offer. That way you can go into your concentration really confident that it's what you want to be studying, like Megan was just saying. Even if you're already rock solid in knowing exactly what you want to study and it's been your dream for years, it's great to take some open curriculum courses before your requirements really start to add up, because the knowledge you gain in those unrelated classes will give you something to bring to the table in that field that you're interested in that you wouldn't have gained without studying outside of your requirements. Or you may even find a department you want to double with. For example, I started out in the Brown RISD dual degree program that Matthew was in, but through the open curriculum, I realized the best use of my time and resources was to take a more singular focus by participating in an accelerated master's program that Brown offers in religious studies. So the opposite of doubling. I eliminated a major. But when I got to Brown, I was so sure I'd be studying film. I thought that since I was 7 years old, you could not change my mind. But a gift Brown gives us is not having to rush into any big decisions, even committing to classes for one semester with our extended shopping period. And the shopping period is integral to the open curriculum. Any of us can talk to you more about it after the panel if you are curious. But take full advantage of the privilege of exploration whenever possible in your time at Brown, especially where classes are concerned.
I also just want to toss one thing in that made me think of is that you'll be in a class that might be a class that you're just interested in with people from all different concentrations, but you also know that most of those classes are going to be that professor's passion project. If it has a cool title, it's most likely not what they've dedicated everything to, but it's something that they really love. So everyone is also going to love being there.
Thank you so much for your answers. Yeah, I totally resonate with the idea of having something really set going into college, thinking you're going to do this one thing and then completely having that turned upside down through exploration. So thank you so much for your answers. I also wanted to pause and say, wow, we have over 100 people on the Zoom call right now. So thank you so much for coming. This is really awesome. We're so happy to have you. And again, congratulations. So for our next question, our audience wants to know, what do you dislike most about Brown, or how do you think it can improve?
Okay, so I'm going to tackle this first, and I do want to preface it by saying that you can have a lot of respect for something, including an institution, and also know how they need to make progress. And so a lot of kind of my frustrations from Brown come from an area of knowing that progress has been made, but wanting more. For me specifically, it's the work done by Disability Justice at Brown, which is an organization on campus trying to make Brown more accessible. And I think for me, it's the fact that we've made some good movement, but we're not quite there yet. So a lot of dorms, for example, are pretty physically inaccessible. You could live in a dorm that's accessible yourself, but your friend could live somewhere that isn't, and you wouldn't be able to visit them. And also just making sure there's more accommodations for people with all sorts of disabilities. People who identify as having a disability can really be accommodated. That being said, administration, again, has done some stuff, but I think they're the ways to go. And I'm looking forward to us kind of moving in that direction.
Wait, sorry, I think it's me. I am terrible at following along with this thing. So first of all, Grace, thank you so much for the work that you are doing with the disability. I don't know what the whole title is, but the organization that you are with, because I run a student organization and we were put in a building that didn't have wheelchair access. And it was surreal having to tell my members, wait, we can't meet this week. I have to find a new building because some of you can't get in the building. So yes, your work's very necessary and thank you. And like Grace said, Brown is working towards progress, but it's frustrating when you see progress that could be made that isn't necessarily there. One of the great things about Brown is that most of the things that you might discover in your time here you want to change, you really do have the tools and the agency to address. And I think one of the things is that because everyone is on their own varied paths, it can be very difficult to establish close relationships with others at Brown. That was definitely one of the things that stuck out most to me. Is in my first and second year, it seemed like my friends at other similar universities were finding close friend groups right away, and it was much easier for them. So if you're like me and you'll be buying the smallest meal plan that you can, you're gonna be living off campus as soon as you are allowed to, it can be really difficult to find friends outside of your department or your interests. I've always thought the way to address this problem was by department, because it's a clear path to meeting people with similar interests who you are guaranteed to see pretty regularly. So I became a DUG leader, which is Department Undergraduate Group Leader this semester, to try to organize more social events within religious studies, my department. And I don't think there's a simple fix for Brown to improve this, but I think it's easy enough to circumvent on an individual level. It just takes more conscious effort than you may have to exert picking another university. But if you join some niche clubs and activities, or you make an effort to really be a presence in your department, then it starts to fall into place. Like my clubs have met in some capacity via Zoom every week since I've left campus. Professors and friends that I know have reached out to me to ask if I'm okay or if I need anything, and vice versa. People I barely know. So once you get around it, then it does kind of resolve itself.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'd kind of focus on the most is, while Brown, I mean, it's been touched on quite a bit already with the open curriculum. I think that Brown is incredibly flexible on classes, and they really pride themselves on giving students the flexibility to choose kind of their own direction. And something that I wish that they did a little more of that with is kind of allowing students to make more choices about going off meal plan and living off campus. Just kind of recently, Brown's been looking at kind of almost restricting that. So as someone that is currently living off campus and is currently off meal plan, as a junior, I've really enjoyed that, and I'm kind of wishing that I'd come off meal plan earlier. And there's a lot of students that kind of want to have that flexibility, have that opportunity to kind of cook for themselves, live off campus, live with a group of people that's not on campus. So just giving a flexibility instead of kind of restricting students in that sense. My suggestion to Brown would be kind of follow that same flexibility that's being pushed on classes in kind of all routes of students' life.
Yeah, on a similar note, just because it sounds like a lot of us live off campus, after this, if anyone has questions about that, please feel free to ask them, because I know I'm currently back home now, but I live off campus as well, and I can talk some, as well as other people can talk some, about kind of navigating how Brown allows for you to not live in a dorm and what that kind of means.
All right. Thank you guys for your genuine answers. So our next question is about imposter syndrome, which is a concept that many of us have heard during our first years. It's discuss some of your insecurities as an incoming freshman first year joining such a selective class.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like incredibly real. I came from a school and from a school district that has kind of like your entire life, like regardless of how well you're doing in school, tells you that like you're not gonna make it to these big schools. And even like when I was applying for colleges, I had a lot of teachers tell me to not bother applying to a lot of colleges. And so like getting here and also like being here, it is really a big reality shock when you're on campus to see that like your peers are from such different backgrounds and from such different environments in high school. Yeah, and I think that like puts a lot of pressure. That put a lot of pressure on me personally to kind of feel like I had to fit in. Obviously, like I didn't know how to do that, um, and I think that like I made a lot of mistakes because of that. But over the years, it's gotten better. I would say that like yeah, I mean, I don't know a great way like around it because personally, I'm still dealing with like a lot of imposter syndrome every day. Um, but it's really just something that like I've had to work through over the course of these past few years, and it's an ongoing thing. I'm realizing that like regardless of where you're from or like what you may see of yourself compared to other people, that your spot at Brown is deserved, and you deserve to be where you are and do what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Every single one of you deserves to have that acceptance letter from Brown. It is scary, and the imposter syndrome does last for a very long time. And I think one of the unique parts of the Brown community is that there's no one telling you you don't deserve to be here, but everyone's accomplishments and passion and motivation around you can make you feel that way. But the thing about the Brown community is that everyone is telling you why you belong here and is seeing the great work that you're doing and applauding you for it. And I think it's always been something that I've struggled with. I'm going to be fully honest. My parents met in the dining hall at Brown. So that's been something my whole life that, oh, it was Brown, or, oh, the whole concept of legacy. So it felt as though partially that my spot at Brown wasn't deserved, but also that I had to prove myself once I was there. And I think the best part of Brown for me has been the moments that I find pride with myself of the work that I've done, of the fact that I created my own concentration and that I just submitted my thesis on Wednesday, and just everything that I've come to, thank you, everything that I've come to at this point. I am really proud to be part of this community, even if every day I walk around feeling like there are people that are smarter or do more or anything. I know that my accomplishments matter, and that I'm so lucky to be able to be around these people that are so smart and so accomplished and to have all these amazing passions that they're so excited to share.
Yeah, sort of going off of all that, I would say like imposter syndrome, it's so real, you know? Um, Coming from high school, especially being a person of color, we deal with, on average, imposter syndrome at a higher rate than some of our non-POC peers. That goes same thing for like gender. There's also other marginalized identities and how that plays into that. For me personally, the only people to get into an Ivy League school my senior year were both Black, so myself and a friend of mine. And folks kind of, excuse my French, like shat on us for it, you know? And I internalized that and I was like, maybe I don't belong at this school. Maybe I'm just some diversity, you know, recruit, whatever. And what really helped me with dealing with that was getting to Brown and seeing that this problem is, I don't want to call it universal, but so many people deal with imposter syndrome. And some of the most incredible people who got like 10 fives on 20 APs or whatever, like whatever, are all thinking, I'm not good enough to be at Brown. And that made me think, maybe I'm doing the same thing, where if I think that they're incredible, maybe I deserve to be a Brown and I also can't see it too.
I'll just add that I think what's unique to Brown compared to these other similar elite universities is that because everyone is really encouraged to be on their own path, like all the other panelists have been saying, it does help cut down on a little bit of the imposter syndrome that you will experience going to any of the schools of this level, because you're supposed to be on your own path. So you're not always looking to the side of you like I was before I got to Brown, thinking, are they going to surpass me and do this or do that? Are they doing this better, more or less or differently? Because I'm now just trying to do exactly what I think is best in on my track, which is just such a new experience for me. And Brown really sets you up to be able to do if you take full advantage of the things that they offer. It never completely goes away, but it's definitely easier knowing you're on your own track, not in a race.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of your really honest answers. I just actually wanted to recall back to our Yale panel that we did last weekend. And when we asked this question, everyone had so much to say. So imposter syndrome is pretty across the board. A lot of it can be really self-imposed, but I find that at Brown, no one's really flexing their accomplishments. People have been really humble, and I find out crazy things about people, like how people have accomplished amazing things that they just never shared openly unless you ask them about it. So I think that's really awesome. So the last question we have prepared is, what has been your most memorable experience at Brown thus far?
Okay, so forewarning, this will be cheesy, but I think for me, there's not one distinct event that kind of sticks out, because I know there are a lot of school-sponsored events that I know I've had fun at. Like there's things like a night on College Hill, there's spring weekend, but again, cheesy. But for me, the real memories that I think stick with me are just based off of hanging out with the people that I've gotten to know, and the fact that Brown has kind of led me to make these relationships that I think will last for most of my life. I don't think I can pick out anything too specific, because it's really just about like the nights where you stay up a little bit too late with your friends and you're all a little bit delirious, and things that are funny. Things are funny that really should not be funny, but it's not really ever, it hasn't ever been a specific event for me. It's just been like the whole thing.
Yeah, I want to second everything that Grace just said. I completely agree. Um, when I kind of thought about, yeah, how I'd answer this question, I mean, what I kind of came to was the most memorable thing has kind of been having to leave campus because of the coronavirus. So it's obviously not a like happy, memorable moment, but just kind of that realization, having to leave so quickly and having to say goodbye to both the campus and all the people that I really cared about on campus in like a day, 2 days, without being able to like hug them, without being able to really like physically interact with anyone. Just kind of like jumped out as like, yeah, you really do have like a connection here at Brown, and like your friends really do mean a lot. Normally when like I leave at the end of the year, I've kind of like prepared for it. Everyone's like spending more time with each other. There's kind of a happy ending to it. But it was definitely a pretty stark ending that's both been really sad, but has also kind of made me realize how much I appreciate Brown and how much I appreciate all the people that are at Brown.
I did also want to add something about how I think everyone's been emphasizing that it's really the people at Brown who make the experience so great. And one memory that I have from freshman year was I remember I'm in Chinese Student Association, and we had our first senior dinner where the seniors took the freshmen out to eat. And I remember having like a pretty bad week where a lot of my like electronics broke. And then the Vegas shooting also happened during that week. And I remember we were just doing like a rosebud and thorn icebreaker. And I was able, that was like one of the first times I was able to open up to people. And I felt like there was a community there that really supported me.
Does anyone else want to add anything before we get into the rapid fire questions? Okay. So we're going to move on to our shorter rapid fire questions. The first one is, what is your favorite first year class that you took?
So I'm going to be honest, I took like almost every, like I took mostly STEM classes my first year, and it sucked. So the only non-STEM class that I did take my freshman year was a class called Contemporary Architecture in the spring. It's a really, really cool course. And it's a really nice introduction to like the vernacular and also like just the style in which people talk about architectural history. The professor that teaches it is really passionate about the work, and I'd really recommend any of you to take any of his courses.
I took a really cool class second semester of my freshman year called Health of Hispaniola. And I was really focused on kind of looking at the disparities between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Even though they're both on the same island, they have really disparate outcomes in terms of healthcare and education and economy. So that was a really cool course, and we got to kind of examine that issue through a lot of different lenses. And I'm currently a public health concentrator, and so kind of seeing how intersectional the discipline was really important for me. And it kind of led me to my concentration now. So that was a really awesome course, and I made a lot of friends through it, because it's like a special first year seminar, which is something that's special to Brown. When you're first year, you have the option to take some first year seminars, which are only first years. They're smaller in size, and they're really dedicated to forming a bond with like your professor and your other peers in the class. So it's definitely a great experience, and I'd recommend that everyone at least explores first year seminars that are available to them.
Yeah, most of the classes that I took my freshman year were also like prerequisite classes, but my favorite was Engine 40, which is a intro engineering course in dynamics and vibrations. But the course is taught by a really good professor who kind of blends the theory with really practical, kind of like hands-on experiments. So there's like a vibration isolation experiment, and then like intro kind of like MATLAB coding labs. So just kind of that connection between the material that was being taught and kind of hands-on work was really good.
I had one distinct answer I was going to give, but Matthew's answer reminds me of another class, so I'm going to break the rules and talk about two. The first one I was going to give was Visa 100, which is like the very, very intro visual arts class. And I think it's just a great class because you get people from all different disciplines just kind of coming together and making weird stuff. The class I was in was, for some reason, really sculpture based. And so it was just students from all over campus making these really weird sculptures out of found objects. And I just think things like that are really rare to get, just like people coming together, learning something entirely new to most people and just having fun. And then I also want to plug Engine 30, which is the class the semester before Matthew was talking about. It's the very first engineering class, if you take an engineering class that you will take. I serve as a mentor for that class, working in the Brown Design Workshop, which is this open building space that any student, like no matter your concentration, can join. And I think that that's a really special place where you can really just build whatever you'd like. There's 3D printers, laser cutters, all sorts of machinery. So I think just being able to be in the Brown Design Workshop for a class is wonderful because it's not really work. It's a lot of fun.
I definitely want to emphasize, I think it was Meghna who brought it up, the importance of first year seminars, which is something that you'll have the opportunity to do if you come to Brown. Not only is it great to be in a class with only other first years, but our advising program in the first year can really be a hit or a miss. You're assigned an advisor based on a really ridiculous form you fill out about what you might be interested in. And I know for me, the advisor I was assigned really did not want to be an advisor, so did not meet with us very often. And your first year seminar professor will really step into an advisory role, even if you have a strong first year advisor. So that was priceless for me. The class I took was called Christmas in America. It was an entire class on Christmas. I recommend everyone take it who can, because the class was excellent, but really the meaningful thing for me was the professor there acted as an advisor for me when I really needed it in my first year, and helped with these basic things that were small at the time, but looking back were huge. Like, here's how you organize files in Acrobat. Here's how you should be annotating, and just helped me kind of acclimate to college life. So being in a setting where I was not the only one going through those things was phenomenal. And Christmas in America is definitely something you should take before you make the decision to major in religious studies, which only has 8 required courses. And shameless plug, you should double with religious studies.
I'd say that my favorite class I took my first year was abnormal psychology, which is not necessarily an introductory course. I had already taken psychology in high school and done a lot of reading and been inside my own brain for a while, but it was really a wonderful course to explore sort of what it means to be an adult and to face some really adult things, especially learning about mental health and the importance of mental health before really diving into college and experiencing all those things firsthand. So I think that was a course that I really valued. It helped me solidify my interest in psychology, but also the professor is this very impressive, well-spoken doctor who would share experiences with his own patients, and that was something really unique, and it contributed a lot to hearing the actual stories of seeing what we were reading about in real life.
All right, thank you for all your answers. So our next question is, what's your favorite place to study?
Did we get to Jason on the last question?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'll say my favorite classes, I had two. The first one was Modern Middle East. Shramati Mitto, she was just a really great lecturer. That's all I can really say about it. The second one was A Table, which was a French food and alcohol class. So that was pretty cool. I was still 18, so couldn't partake in half of it, but it was fun.
All right, thank you so much. I guess we can go ahead and say our favorite classes. I really liked Intro to Neuro, which I know a lot of freshmen take. And it was pretty cool because my advisor was also one of the professors. And so for our next question, it's what's your favorite place to study?
Right, so when I'm doing readings, I find that I don't like to sit in the library because I feel like I get distracted really easily. So I actually really like sitting in the environmental studies building. The basement floor is kind of ground level, so it has these window seats with like couches and pillows, and I just really like people watching while I read and kind of being able to look outside and be comfortable while I do so and not be in a library. So that's probably my favorite place to study, especially if I'm doing readings.
Mine changes day by day. I'm not one of those people that will fall asleep if I work in my bed, so I'm there. Sometimes depends what I'm doing, but in the student center, which is Font's house, which a lot of us just call the Blue Room, even though that's just the name of the cafe, but the whole building on the second floor. There's Lung Gallery, which is really a beautiful space with lots of light and very open, so it's a really great place.
My favorite place is actually kind of unpractical for most purposes, but I really like studying in the Orwig Music Library. It's like also the music building, so a lot of professors like play instruments there. Obviously, that's not great if you're trying to read something or like write something, but it's good for composing.
My favorite spot is probably the Brown Center for Students of Color, the BCSC. They have like a really nice, like kind of scary, but like cool mansion. A lot of nice couches. If you live in Andrews / North Campus, they have really nice study spaces in either Andrews Commons or in the basements of those dorms.
I think Talia nailed it. I like to be in bed. Nothing is better than having spent the day in bed and having been productive. But second to that, I like to study around Providence because we don't get as many opportunities to get off campus as we might otherwise would like. So be able to go out in the community and be able to do my work and be staying up on top of college, but still explore the area is great. There's a lot of great little towns around Providence, and you get with your student ID, it acts as a bus pass, so you can go anywhere in Providence that you want, or actually outside of Providence too, anywhere in Rhode Island that you want for free. So definitely make advantage of your bus pass ID.
Oh yeah, going off campus to study is always really nice. I personally really like there's a traveling coffee cart called the Nitro Cart. There's also the Nitro Cafe, which is like the cart's main little station. It's a building, and so studying a little coffee shop in Providence. But I think if I'm still on campus, then there's the Rockefeller Library, which we call the Rock. I go up to the fourth floor, which is the top floor, and I sit facing out into Providence. So since we're on a hill, you're kind of overlooking downtown / whatever small area that Providence holds. And it's just kind of nice to like sort of be doing work, but also sort of not be doing work and just be turned towards the window and staring out the window. It's really peaceful. It's a silent floor. It's well.
Yeah, I also like the view of Providence. Above the mailroom, you can go up. I'm gonna forget. I think there's 5 floors. Maybe there's more. But if you go up to the top floor, there are study rooms on all the floors. They can be hard to get because a lot of people like to study in them, especially on weekends. But on the top floor, there's a room that has windows on both sides, so you can look down into Providence and then over kind of to East Providence too. And then during kind of sunset, it's really beautiful to work up there.
Yeah, there's a really nice chandelier room in Page Robinson. I really love studying in the Hay. It was right next to where me and Michelle live, so I was there all the time. So we have a minute left, so I think we're just going to skip to open Q&A. So we obviously were not able to answer everyone's submitted questions, but we tried to include the ones that were most requested. So if you have a lingering question, please use the raise hand feature. If you can't find it, maybe just like clap react or something, or you can drop it in the group chat. You can also private message me or Michelle if you want to remain anonymous. For everyone else, please remain muted so we can retain the audio quality. All right, anyone have a question?
We'll answer anything. It doesn't have to be academic.
There's 100 people. I know someone has a question.
If not, we can also go through the Google form and
we have one.
I think Ellie and Joe both have a question.
Joe, do you want to go first? You can unmute yourself, I think, now.
There you go. Yeah. What's your favorite restaurant like around the Providence area?
Anyone want to answer?
Thayer Street is the main street that like goes through campus. That is sort of like the place in Providence that a lot of middle school or high schools, and it's in the middle of Brown's campus. And there are a bunch of restaurants along there. The Flatbread Pizza Company is my favorite. If anybody ever comes to campus to visit me, I want to go there. It's amazing.
My friend owns a restaurant that everyone should go to called Maria's Cucina, and it is inside the Italian American Club of Rhode Island. And Rhode Island has an incredible Italian population that generates some really great food for us Brown students. And if you can't get all the way out there, they deliver. So definitely, if you come, check out Maria's Cucina.
Yeah, any restaurant in Federal Hill, which is like the Italian neighborhood of Providence, is fire. I really like Kitchen, which is like this really small brunch place. It's like one guy who like cooks and serves the food. There's also a place called Bucktown, which is really good, like Southern style fried chicken.
My recommendation, okay, so this is a weird flex, but my girlfriend is Yelp Elite, and so we tend to like go to different places every week-ish. And so the number one place I would recommend, it's definitely like a special occasion kind of place because it's a little on the pricier side and it's like an event, but it's called Lekker Barbecue. So it's a Korean barbecue place, and what you can do is you can just sit there for a very long time and cook meat, and it's wonderful. Highly recommend.
Okay, awesome. So we have another question from Ryan. How does the connection with RISD work? What sort of resources or classes do you get to use? And also if you want to talk about like cross-registration.
Yeah, I can jump into that one. So between Brown and RISD, it's actually kind of easier for RISD students to take classes at Brown than it is the other way around. But Brown definitely does. I mean, you can 100% take classes at RISD. So there is a requirement that you're supposed to take Visa 100 in order to take classes at RISD, although that's not actually enforced. So that's something to kind of keep in mind if you want to take classes at RISD, but you don't have time in your schedule to take Visa 100. But in general, you just kind of have to look at classes that are interesting to you and then reach out to RISD professors. A lot of RISD professors are super open and super excited to have Brown students excited to take their courses. So there's definitely a lot of options there. The only thing that can be difficult is some RISD classes have really long sessions. So a lot of my studio courses meet for 5 hours twice a week, which is hard to fit into a Brown schedule. But just talking with kind of the professors, if you can get around that in any way, a lot of professors are always happy to help.
I will add that if you can't, for whatever reason, fit a RISD class into your schedule, that it is priceless to befriend a RISD student, not only because RISD students are awesome, but because all of my friends pretty much go to RISD and they let me into the facilities that I need to use with their IDs, and that's spectacular. Yeah, befriend a RISD student in any case, because if you're at Brown, then you're right there and you should meet some RISD people, but it's a fantastic resource, and their food, frankly, is better than ours. So get swiped into RISD's dining hall at least once before you leave.
So I am a little biased because I study visual arts at Brown. So I will say something that Matthew mentioned is that the classes are super long at RISD. I super recommend, if you have like a very niche thing you want to do, to like get your way into a RISD class. But if you're looking for something that's shorter, maybe a little bit broader, definitely try to exhaust the art department at Brown. There's a lot of great professors, and if you're just looking for a creative experience, it's a lot easier to manage. Brown will let you do it a lot better than they'll let you take a RISD class.
All right, so I got a message privately and they asked, what was the hardest part about transitioning to Brown and what advice would you give to your freshman self?
I was homeschooled, so it was a major transition for me to come to Brown and be living around 1,000 people every single day. And for the 2 years leading up to being at Brown, I was technically taking college courses. So I always was like the young one in a college setting, and all of a sudden everyone was my age. And I felt so intimidated thinking that I would be out of place, or that, like we talked about so much with imposter syndrome, that I would like expose that I didn't belong there, and just kind of realizing that everyone was sharing those similar feelings was great to help me get over that. But that was the biggest thing at first, was just kind of being able to own that Brown was my community now too, and that I should participate in it fully. Oh, also, Jason was just elected our undergraduate council of students president, so we're all in super good hands if you come in as a freshman.
Okay, we have a question from John. You can unmute yourself.
My question is, where do you guys go to have like a relaxed time or just to have fun when you find time outside of Brown and the studies?
One thing that I really like to do is I go on this street called Wickenden Street. It's like a very like popular commercial area that's also like close to Brown within walking distance, but it's not as dominated by Brown students during the week as Thayer is. But it's a really nice like quieter vibe. There's a coffee shop there called The Shop. It's amazing. It's really nice like view of the river, so really would recommend it.
Also, PV Donuts is in that area. It's just very gluttonous gourmet donuts. I'm just like, this isn't the most relevant. I'm just thinking about food, but PV Donuts, go. Thank you.
It also depends what you want to do. If it's something that you want to do alone, there's really nice places to walk around. But I also end up finding that most of the time I was relaxing was when I would sit in the dining hall with my friends for like 2 or 3 hours at a meal, just talking or in each other's rooms.
Michelle, do you want to go ahead?
So another question we have is if you have any advice on housing, especially for freshmen.
So for first years, it's randomly assigned and the roommates randomly assigned. There is there are different accessibility accommodations that you can speak to C's or Residential Life about. But as the first year going in, it's going to happen how it's going to happen. And that's one of the really big things, that if it's not great, talk to your Michael John, they will help you. It is scary. I remember I was taking a nap when I got my roommate assigned, which I never take naps, so it was very disorienting to wake up and like have my future decided. But my roommate was from Honolulu, and we were just talking about random like fun things. So going into it, can't do anything, but it's really great. It's really nice that it's randomly assigned.
Okay, we have quite a few questions in the chat. Are any of you involved in sports on campus?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you are not a varsity athlete, as most of us are not, you should join a club sport. Club sports here are phenomenal. Most of them don't have tryouts. They just teach you everything you need. And if you don't have, the gear and you're just trying it out and don't want to invest, they will often give you some. One of the best things I've done since coming to Brown is joining the club lacrosse team. And just last night, I was Zooming with all 26 girls on my team. And it is such a great social thing, as well as like it's fun to stay active and everything, but just socially, club sports is terrific. I highly recommend trying out a club sport. It is so relaxed at Brown. It is fantastic.
I second that, in that Emma is my roommate who's the captain of lacrosse, and I live with 2 other captains of their club sports teams, and it's a really wonderful community. I wish I had joined. I also have, if people here aren't a varsity athlete, people want to message me, I also live with like 3 other varsity athletes, so I can answer some questions about that too.
All right, so I have another question asking if there's a significant difference between the quiet dorms and the normal dorms, and if there's any stigma if you choose the quiet dorms.
I don't know if anyone here has lived in a quiet dorm. If so, feel free to jump in. Sort of from like working on like university policy and also talking to my friends, unfortunately, a lot of the times Brown in the past put people in quiet dorms who either didn't request it or put people in like non-quiet dorms who, vice versa. I will say from the vibe I get, it seems, as you can probably tell, like a lot quieter, more peaceful. I think it's something you may want to look into if you are trying to escape like the loudness of dorms, because they get pretty hectic.
I guess we can also kind of talk about the difference between sub-free dorms and normal dorms, if anyone has experience with that.
Are you looking at me? Yes, I lived in substance-free in my freshman year. I think generally it's just quieter. I don't like recommend it or not recommend it unless you feel strongly. I think either way, it would have been a fine living experience for me. Yeah, if anyone else wants to pitch in.
I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. I will shut up after this, but this seems like a good opportunity to also just say that everything you've heard about the college experience having to be about drinking is just not true, period, especially at Brown. I personally am substance-free by choice, and it is real. I've never had a problem at Brown ever. And I say that as someone who still like goes to parties, and I've never once been given a hard time about not, choosing not to partake in any of that stuff. Even if you don't live in a substance-free dorm, like, do not worry, you will find a community here. And there's this group called So Bears, which you can like on Facebook, which always sends out an email about all of these substance-free events on campus. That's really terrific. And so if that was on your mind, just absolutely don't worry about that coming to Brown.
Also, to jump in on that, I think one thing that's really special about Brown is that though we do have the work hard, play hard culture, if you choose to engage in that, everyone is really respectful of your decisions. Like if somebody says, oh, I'm going to go out on Friday, everyone's like, okay, great, have fun. And if people say I'm going to stay in the library until 12 on Friday, everyone's like, wow, okay, great job studying. Like it's very much supportive. If somebody does give you a hard time, like that person's just not very nice, because everyone else is really there to do whatever it takes to make you comfortable.
Someone asked me to clarify if I was assigned to sub 3, if I chose it. It was a choice. I think it's just by option, but I'm not sure if you can be placed there. We'll take one more question because we're running short on time. Let's end on what is your favorite Brown tradition?
Not to be emo, but I'd say the going through the gates, which we are not going to get, seniors are not going to get to do yet, but we will eventually. So when you, during convocation, which is in your first few days of Brown, you walk in through the gates, and then in graduation, you walk out of the gates, and those are the only 2 times during the year that they're open. I guess at one point when with halfway students, but I think the wonderful thing is that because of graduation getting postponed, Brown has been very insistent on the fact that we will walk through the gates and we will have that moment, and it's something really special that they've been doing for years.
My favorite tradition is, it's actually kind of a niche tradition, but every year during like first semester reading period, the Brown band goes around and like plays Christmas songs, or like holiday songs across like different study halls. And when they play in the CS building, a few years ago, there's this one CS student that like kind of freaked out about like the band playing. And every year they reenact that freak out. They have like a whole script where they like scream back at the band, and then the band like screams back at them or something like that. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
I was gonna say campus dance and like senior week / alumni reunion are all really great on Brown's campus. They all happen at the same time as graduation. Campus dance is a dance with 14,000, I think, people who come to the main green of like alums, current students, and graduating seniors. It's also the biggest outdoor party on the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like a really wild and fun time.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up. So, because we're out of time, we will also have a few panelists. I think all of them have agreed that they can stay after for a little bit. So, if you have any more specific questions, feel free to stay. And we'll also be sending out any emails of the panelists if they're comfortable with it in a follow-up email. And we just want to thank the panelists so much for taking the time to be here, as well as you all for participating. Hopefully you found this to be helpful, informative, and an enjoyable way to learn more about the Brown community.
Thank you to Michelle and May for organizing this. This is really special. ADOC was the reason I chose to come to Brown, so to be able to have this opportunity is really great.
I cannot imagine having to pick a college without visiting. None of us envy you right now, and we really feel for you. So no matter how like direct your question may be, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We get that you're in a really difficult position and we want to help however we can.
Yeah, and going off of that, we also want to take the opportunity to invite you all to help us expand what we're doing at CollegeSide Chats. So our goal is to host several more across various universities, and we need help with marketing and outreach, which can be as simple as just sharing our Instagram posts on your stories. So we also have panels for UC Berkeley, which is going to be in 2 hours, Georgetown and USC tomorrow, lined up for this weekend. So if you're interested, please check out our Instagram for more information. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, panelists, for volunteering your time. We really, really appreciate it. And congratulations to all of you on your acceptances. We hope that your loved ones stay safe and healthy, and welcome to Brown. All right, so we are going to stay for a little bit and hang out so we can answer a few more questions.
Also, all your thank yous in the chat are adorable. We're just happy you're here.
Oh, so I had a question kind of on like, what's the social scene or like party scene, I guess, at Brown like?
I know I can talk a tiny bit on that, at least from like a Greek life perspective. So I am in a sorority on campus. There's 4 sororities, and there's some also different fraternities that are either co-ed or not, that are either like not nationally recognized or just within Brown. And so I think it depends. That can be an avenue that you take in order for kind of a party situation or places you can visit for that. But there's also just different clubs and organizations that'll hold their own things. I know people were talking about like people being close in lacrosse, and I know people will hold their own parties based off of like sports organization or things like that. So I think it really is what you make of it, as long as you kind of know what you want to do and are willing to like figure it out, meet new people, then you can totally go for either way. But again, as we've mentioned, it's not like a requirement by any means.
I don't know if the people who have their hands raised still have their questions, but if you do, feel free to just unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you guys so much for doing this. I feel that I've already learned quite a bit just from listening to you guys speak on the frequently asked questions. But I had a question about how you guys would recommend investigating the potential career pathways that follow a particular concentration. So if I'm somebody who's interested in engineering, but also the environmental sciences and earth sciences, but I'm unsure as to what career pathways would follow concentrating in those particular fields, and a simple Google search is yielding pretty minimal results, who would you recommend contacting at the school? Would you go to peers or professors or advisors?
I can speak a little bit. Oh, sorry. Does someone else want to go?
Yeah, I just like really quickly just wanted to plug that we have this website called Focal Point at Brown, and every concentration is listed with like a list of where alumni go.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, there's also student groups called DUGs, so they're departmental undergraduate groups, and they're led by different students. So each concentration has a departmental undergraduate group, and they kind of serve as a resource for folks who want to know more about the concentration, what you can do in the concentration, and pretty much all of them have their own website. So if you can like Google the name of your concentration and their DUG, you can find the leader's contact information. And they're definitely a great resource in terms of the student perspective on what you can do with your concentration.
We do have a really strong careers. No, sorry.
No, you go. You started.
Okay. We have a really strong career services office here too, where if you're trying to decide on career-related things, you can go and get free advising. And I have a friend there she has some official title, but essentially she's like a peer counselor there, and they're actually so helpful. No matter how clear you think your vision is, you could benefit from a quick chat with someone at career services. Just best understand all your options, make sure you're taking full advantage of the school.
Yeah, Jim is my best friend. He's one of the people. He does the careers in the social good. Also, I want to say, if you are interested in engineering and environmental stuff, thank you. We need that. Very important. I'd also say that that's one of the best things about Professor Brown, is that because their office hours are so open and they're willing to talk to you at any point, I feel like I've really formed friendships with some of the professors that I've had, and they want you to succeed, because when they want you to learn something, it's because they want you to join and be one of them in the world of making a difference. And I would say most professors at Brown are in the field of making some sort of positive difference in the world. So having conversations with them is really important. And friends will link you to someone that they met in some other class. And
yeah, I wanted to second that. One of the questions that we didn't get to was what was something that you like regretted about your time at Brown. And I mean, what I thought of as kind of at the start, not reaching out to professors as much as I could have. That goes for like office hours and also just like general advice. Professors are definitely out there to help you, and that's not just for the classes that you're in. So a lot of them do research outside of their classes, and they're really happy to have students becoming involved with that research. So any of those professors that you can kind of see a connection in what you're interested in are always happy to respond to you and always happy to talk and possibly work with you on a project.
Yeah, I think we can take some time to answer that question if everyone wants to go around and talk about their regrets. I think going off of what Matthew said, definitely I do regret like not asking my professors how, for example, like about research or career pathways. Most professors are very happy to share their journey through academia and how they got to the point where they are today. And I will say that even though they are very happy to help you, like you have to ask for it first. You are not going to be handed opportunities unless you ask for them. And I think that was something that took me a little while to learn, is that you really have to like assert what you want in order to get help from other people. So if anyone wants to kick off what your biggest regret was.
I'd say as a senior who is going to graduate, no, I know I am. I did not give myself a break early enough. And I'm going to go through my whole life not giving myself a break. We're all hard workers. We're all passionate people. That never enough is a common feeling. That's why you got into Brown, is because you work so hard. But I really wish that I'd given myself more credit. That maybe goes with imposter syndrome. Maybe it goes with whatever. But I wish I'd kind of just let myself like sit in it a little bit more and say like, yeah, I'm a Brown student and I'm doing really smart, cool things and I'm kind of fancy sometimes, but I also sometimes don't know what I'm doing. And that's also another one I regret not admitting, that sometimes you don't have to know what you're doing. So I think just giving yourself a break, which is really hard to do, but important.
Yeah, sort of on a similar note, I feel like for me, my biggest regret, even though I'm a junior, like right now I'm especially thinking about like all the events I like decided to pass up, or all the times I could have like hung out with friends that I didn't go to. And while, you know, optimistically we will have the chance to do it next year, there's also a chance for us that we may not necessarily have that opportunity to go to those events. And so I would say for me, just like the social opportunities, when I was just like, I'll go next year, or I'm lazy this weekend. Yeah.
Jason and Talia put it better than I'm going to put it, but I also came in the first year thinking like I'm at Brown to learn and to take advantage of my classes and not go to these kinds of events and not to like fall behind. So I passed up on so many great experiences as far as clubs and like cool traditions and UCS stuff that was going on all around me. And that really is part of the Brown experience and part of why you're here. All these things you do outside of the classroom will further your efforts inside of the classroom. So definitely my biggest regret was not getting involved in more social activities and clubs and things outside of my academic work until my junior year. If I could get those years back, I would do a lot to get that back.
Yeah, I know for me, I totally agree with what people are saying, and I feel it just as much. I think to have like a slightly different point, just in terms of courses, once you're taking classes that might not be exactly in your wheelhouse or you're experimenting a little bit, like not being afraid to participate. I know for one, I really enjoy seminar style classes, the ones that are a little bit smaller and a little bit more personal, but I always found myself not participating because I didn't think I knew enough. But I think I really figured it out my junior year that no one knows everything, and it does not matter if you know the least out of everyone in the class. Like, you're there to learn. It's a class because you're trying to learn. It's not, you don't come in with the most information in the world, you're gaining information. And so feel free to just participate. I know I'm in an education class right now with Talia, and it's been one of the classes that's like really helped me to actually speak during class and share my thoughts, even though I'm not an education major and I don't know much about education. I'm taking the class to learn about it. So feel free to put yourself out there and make mistakes. It's well worth it.
I totally agree with everything that everyone said. And I think that for me, as someone who's pre-professional and hopes to become a doctor someday, I feel like a lot of my freshman year, I did things because I felt like I had to do them rather than because I actually wanted to do them. And so kind of reflecting back on the clubs I pursued freshman year, classes that I even took, sometimes I wish I'd allowed myself to explore more, because now thinking back to the time and energy I put into those activities where I wasn't entirely interested in even doing them, it definitely feels like I probably could have used my time better in that sense. So don't feel like you should do things because that's what's expected of you. I feel like follow what you're passionate about, and that will, I know this is really cheesy, but at Brown, I feel like you have so much opportunity to follow what you're passionate about, and like know that you'll have resources and people who support you in finding things that you want to do, given your passion. So I would definitely give myself that advice in terms of doing things that I actually want to do and not doing things because I feel like I have to do them. Yeah.
I also want to quickly jump in with one more thing. I know I've been saying a lot, but I'm just going to keep going. There's a lot of talk about passion and people being very passionate about something and having your one passion. And I really want to emphasize the fact that nobody has just one thing that they come in like, oh, wow, I'm really passionate about this one thing and I'm going to do it and I'm going to be the best at it. Like there's no pressure to feel like you have to have one of those. I'm about to go into the real world and I still don't really know what mine is, but being passionate is different than having your one passion. And you are all accepted to Brown because you are passionate, not because of a passion that you have.
Amazing. How about we take one more question and then we'll probably wrap things up. Michelle disconnected, so I think she'll be back before this ends, but
I'm back.
Oh, you're back.
Hey.
Okay. Nice. So
I was the next person. Oh, sorry.
Awesome.
I was
Go
the next
ahead.
person. So I'm kind of, I already asked this in the chat, but I'm kind of concerned about how exactly to balance exploration time and also trying to plan my career. And so I know you guys have a lot of advising, but how do you guys balance those two things? And how does it kind of change from year to year?
Well, I can kick that off as someone who's majoring in something that has nothing, and I mean nothing, to do with my intended career. And then, who knows why, getting a master's in that thing that has nothing to do with my intended career. And I think one of the great things about Brown is networking. So I don't remember who said it, but someone mentioned that all the classes you take will be filled with people from all different concentrations because of the open curriculum. So there's so much more overlap than I realized, even if you decide to pursue something just because you think it's interesting and important work and it's not necessarily directly related to your career. And a big way that I found to mitigate that is joining clubs that have to do with my career, so that way it doesn't impose on my academic work in a way that I don't feel like I can take full advantage of the open curriculum, because I want to be a screenwriter and Brown has only 2 screenwriting classes. And it would be, personally, I think it's a waste of time to spend all 4 years focusing on your career, because it's the open curriculum, it's Brown, you'll never have this chance again. So joining clubs, and everyone should join the Brown University Screenwriting Collective because we are awesome and we will teach you how to screenwrite. There is no skill requirement. Clubs is the short answer, but I could talk about this for a long time because it plagued me for years until I finally felt comfortable with the way I was managing my time.
I also think, to a degree, there's a way to integrate things that may seem irrelevant to a class into a class, and this might be hyper-specific to super things, but I know for me, so I'm doing visual arts and engineering, and for me, I want to go into product design and furniture design, and so I'll take classes like I took a public health class, last semester, and for my final project, I kind of designed a solution that had to do with what we were talking about disability, community, and culture, and so there's a way to kind of keep your experience exactly what you want it to be, even if your class isn't like super relevant or doesn't seem super relevant to a career that you want to pursue, you can still kind of make it what you want to make it.
I would also say definitely take advantage of like all the opportunities for like funding and, you know, access that Brown can give you. For example, I did an internship for, I think it was like 3 weeks over winter break, where I worked in DC with like a law firm or law center that works on like homelessness, poverty issues. And so you will really get like the chance to do a lot more than you probably have been in high school. Like I would have never thought I could have taken 3 weeks to do a like internship, you know, but that was really valuable for me to help learn. Do I like this? Do I not like this? You know?
And the current president of Brown, Chris Paxson, it really emphasizes that she wants every student to have some form of internship before graduating, and their undergraduate research awards that are available over the summer at Brown, but also different funding awards for summer exploration and different things like that. So there are many different opportunities and many people that want to help you get there.
I have one question about like, are there a lot of opportunities for like research and lab with the professors in Brown? Because like Brown is known for liberal art programs, so I want to kind of like ask about like STEM majors and kind of pre-med path.
Yeah, I think there are a ton of opportunities. I think it's kind of as other folks have said, it's a matter of knowing where to look and reaching out to people. Researchers at Brown is a great resource. I can put the link in the chat, but you can basically type in your interests in terms of research, and a whole bunch of professors who are actually involved in those areas of research will show up, and you can reach out to them. I know for me, I had a hard time like actually reaching out to people because I was really intimidated by it. But for the most part, people want to help you learn and help you grow and connect you to opportunities. And even if folks don't have opportunities themselves, they'll definitely be able to like connect you to other people who do. And I think that another way to find research opportunities is through your classes. So if there's a professor that you really, really like, and you really vibe with their teaching, or you think that they'd be a great mentor, definitely reach out to them, have that conversation, go to their office hours and ask them to hear more about their work and whether they'd be willing to take you on. So I think there are definitely a ton of research opportunities. Just finding where to look is probably the hardest part in making that first step and reaching out, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this is going to actually be the last question, but I think it's really important for us to address. Could someone speak to the mental health services on campus and general thoughts about mental health at Brown from your perspectives as students?
If y'all don't mind, I do kind of want to start with this. I don't have like a huge long thing to say, but I do have some personal experiences that I think are worth sharing. So personally, I've dealt with CAPS, which is the university's mental health program. It's professionals that are there to help you if you make an appointment, people to reach out to. I know with every university and a lot of just organizations in general, it's usually a mixed bag in terms of getting help that you really need. But I think a lot of student organizations are also doing similar things. That being said, like, I don't have all the answers. I know if people have slightly different experiences, please speak to it. I know CAPS was helpful to me. They pointed me in the direction of getting a full-time off-campus therapist and psychiatrist. And so sometimes it really is just about finding what works for you, and that might not necessarily be through the school, but there are good resources on campus from students and peers and also from professionals if you need them.
Yeah, I second that. I did not have a great experience with CAPS, but there were so many strong student resources that were basically like throwing resources at me of ways to find it, because mental health is really, really a priority among Brown students. And people are very smart and very hardworking with all of this to make it accommodating. I also have a full-time off-campus therapist. I actually do use a psychiatrist through CAPS, which has been very helpful. Sorry if this is too much for anybody, but I think it's really important to talk about it this candidly, because college is really hard and it's really important to be addressing all of these things. But the resources do exist, and they exist all over. And Providence is full of really great, wonderful people that want to help you. And especially at Brown, Brown is one of the most understanding places when it comes to mental health.
So I just wanted to also mention that Project Let's is a great resource. They're peer mental health advocates if you can't afford counseling. But for CAP specifically, they have drop-in hours during the course registration period and also finals week and more like stress-intensive times. ZenCare is a great option as well to look for off-campus counseling. I'm probably missing things, but CAPS is not intended to be long-term care. It's usually 30 to 45-minute appointments, like every 2 weeks. So, but it is a free resource on campus. Amelia, did you want to add anything?
Well, I've heard this varies by department, but also if you're going through something, feel free to reach out to your professor preemptively and talk to them about it. I know in my department especially, my advisor, who's the director of undergraduate studies, makes a point of saying, can't meet you today, I'm going to therapy because he wants to normalize seeking mental health resources. And I, before coming to Brown, could not say to any of my professors or instructors, like, I'm feeling really anxious about this. Could I get an extension or modify it in some way? I would have to come up with like, oh, I'm sick, I couldn't meet that deadline, because it wasn't seen as a valid reason. But that has never been the case at Brown for me. Everyone is so willing to work with you and accommodate you because they care much more about you're getting the most out of the class than meeting rigid and ultimately arbitrary standards. So definitely don't be afraid to be a self-advocate. That is welcome and encouraged here.
Yes, and there is a C's office for if you need accessibility accommodation. So definitely check out those resources. We'll probably send out a recap email with everything that we've mentioned. But I think we're going to wrap it up here. This has been a lovely panel. It was really, really nice speaking to all of you, and our panelists have been really amazing. Thank you so much for taking part. Michelle, if you're here, do you want to say something?
Yep. I just want to say thank you so much again to our panelists. They're really great, and for everyone who attended.
Yep, we'll send out a follow-up email with more information, but take care, everyone. Thank you so much, and welcome to Brown. Bye.
Stay safe and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
All right. Bye, everyone.